welcome to episode 27 of the RF Generation Playcast. This is Grey Ghost 81, and in this episode, we'll be discussing our game for June of 2016. This month, Steven introduced us to one of his favorite games from his childhood. Was he wearing rose-colored glasses, or did he introduce a hidden classic to all of us? Find out as we discuss the Illusion of Gaia for the Super NES. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. You can listen to the show on iTunes and Podbean. As always, don't forget to log on to RFGeneration.com to join our playthroughs and discuss the amazing games we play together. Thank you as always for listening, and now, on with the Playcast.
So I feel like I just spoke to you guys.
You did.
I did. I know, right?
That was an interesting evening. Some jackass kept playing the guitar, and it'll be our longest conversation on the air to date.
Yeah, nearly 4 hours of conversation, it seems, except for the the breaks in between. But if you don't know what we're referring to, we actually got together last week, and we're all excited to talk about E3 and the new games and trailers that were released. And so we did about a 4-hour podcast on that, which was quite a lot of fun and really enjoyable. Some of us enjoyed ourselves a decent amount, myself included.
Too much.
My apologies to EA and Bethesda, who were at the end of our conversation. But well-deserved, and probably why I put them toward the end of the conversation. So if you haven't checked that out, please check out our E3. It is a long podcast, but I think you'll enjoy. We do go in-depth on most of the games that were discussed or trailers that were shown at E3. So, and even some stuff that wasn't shown, right?
Yeah, we had some of the trailers that weren't even present at E3 or not part of the press conferences. So we went pretty deep on everything.
Yeah. So good show. Check it out. So what's everyone been up to lately? Anything exciting? Playing anything cool? Had any good pickups lately? Not everyone at once.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I've been in a little bit of a gaming rut, I think. I haven't really been playing anything. Been trying to work on some music-related endeavors, but that's always slow going for me. But
awesome.
Not much gaming-wise going on, which is unusual for me.
Well, any endeavor is a good endeavor. So,
sure.
Keep plugging away at that. I'm sure Shawn can help you write a song. I've heard his guitar skills gently strumming in the background. And, if you're... I don't know if I get more excited about you picking up games, Steven, or when you sell games. And I think I speak for Shawn as well.
A lot of people were excited the last time I sold games. Yeah.
Well, make sure that the three of us are in the know and give us a little sneak preview before you do it again. I definitely picked up some cool games from you on your last sale, so that was awesome. Sure. How about you, Floyd? You said you started to talk there. What have you been up to?
Yeah, I got a special little package from you.
Oh, cool.
A little while ago, we worked out a deal for Shenmue.
Yep.
Which, it's one of the hot talked about games right now because it's getting a third entry in the series,
mm-hmm.
and this might come up as a possible playthrough game.
Yep.
And a little while ago, I picked up the collector's edition of Odin Sphere.
Oh, wow.
HD, whatever, it's got some weird name.
Is that for PS4 or?
Yes.
Okay. How is it? Have you tried it out yet?
Not yet. But, if they only updated the visuals and didn't change too much, I think I'll be happy.
Oh, cool. Awesome. How about you, Shawn? What have you been up to besides going to extra inning baseball games?
Yeah, so I was just telling you guys I went to a rain-delayed and extra innings ball game last night, so I'm a little tired, but I've been playing Dragon Age Inquisition on the Xbox 360 actually.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as pickups, I've grabbed a couple more Super Famicom games. I got Dragon Quest VI recently,
cool.
which looks really good actually. I fired it up to test it and almost got sucked into playing it because it was it had a really strong opening. So looking forward to maybe checking that one out someday. But yeah, that's what I'm up to. Dragon Quest, Dragon Age is obviously a really deep game, so I'm just pouring a lot of hours into that. So
very cool. And as far as the Super Fammy pickups, it seems like the four of us is, since we've had our Retrons, we've been picking up quite a bit of Super Fammy RPGs. And I think I mentioned this to you guys. We did our sidecast for E3, and I think it'd be kind of cool if maybe we played out maybe some RPGs over, several months, not like over 1 month or whatever, but, and then, maybe talked about them or whatever. We'd have to slow Steven down a bit in order to do that, but,
that's, yeah, I need an excuse to, play all these Super Famicom games I bought, because since I bought the Retron, I think I've played one Super Famicom RPG, and it was a game called Monstania, and it wasn't very good. So, out of all the good RPGs on the system, that's the game I chose to play. So I really want to play one of the better ones soon.
Yeah, well, you hooked us up with the patches, and
right, yeah.
And then we can translate those to English, so that'll be nice. And speaking of, I just picked up Terranigma, which we'll talk a little bit about today with our game. And Tales of Fantasia. Never played a Tales game. I've heard this one's pretty good, and just trying to build up that Super Family library and do that. Otherwise, I actually checked out a new flea market. It's about, my buddy and I went, it's about 45 minutes away. Picked up some good stuff. There's a big video game booth there, but the guy's prices are, it's the kind of guy that sells like every Game Boy game for $10 and acts like he knows the price of everything and everything's rare and that sort of thing. So that was a bit annoying for my buddy who collects Game Boy primarily. But I picked up some good stuff from him. I got Wild Arms at a good price. And I actually picked up a copy of Lilo and Stitch on the Game Boy Advance. You guys know about this?
No, is that notable for some reason?
Well, I'm a member of the Cartridge Club, and so I, with some of those guys, I talk back and forth, and the guys that do the NARC podcast also had mentioned Lilo and Stitch. It's on Game Boy Advance. It's a cheap title. I got it for I think $2 or $3. It's actually a Contra-like shooter, if you can believe that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and so it's worth picking up if you come across it. I mean, I'm sure, you might be at a flea market or at some store where they're just selling kids' games really cheap, as they usually do in like a value bin. So if you find Lilo and Stitch, and there's actually a Lilo and Stitch 2, and I understand it's sort of the same type of game, pick it up, but it's sort of like a running gun. It reminds me a little of Contra, a little of Gunstar Heroes, if you will, as well. So worth checking out.
I love when that kind of stuff happens. When you find out what you would assume to be just a crummy license game is a little bit of a hidden gem. There's a Kim Possible game on the PS2 is kind of known for Yep. So, that's a great game too.
It is a really good game.
I love when that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, just a title you think it's cartoony, it's not going to be great, it's a kid's game, and then you find out, wow, this is a pretty neat game. I love finding those types of things. I picked up Tesla Grad today. Do you guys know this game? Familiar with it?
Yeah, I didn't know it got a physical release. I thought it was all like Steam and like digital only.
No, cool. It got a PS3 and PS4 release. So I found a copy in a GameStop a few weeks ago, and I saw it, and I was like, I just saw the cover, and the title interested me, so I looked at it, and I put it like in this little notebook I have on my phone, and took it and watched a video on it, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. So it's like a 2D platformer, right, Floyd?
I think so. Yeah, I think
hand drawn.
Probably pulls a lot of influence from Metroid.
Yeah, there's some like Metroidvania tactics, like some backtracking and stuff, and you're in this sort of castle. but you don't have any weapons or anything. Basically, you have this glove, and you can manipulate like magnetism, and it's sort of like a puzzle game. It's not like a fighting game.
Like, what do they call it? Like a physics puzzle platform or whatever?
Yeah, something like that. It reminds me a little bit of like Limbo, in a way. So, interested to check this out. And I picked up an Atari cart today, Shark Attack, which I had, but this was a variant. And I haven't been picking up many Atari games because there's not much left that I can pick up that won't cost me an arm and a leg, so I was happy to get that. And other than the wife and I working on sort of I guess I told you guys that we're trying to do a horror marathon. We're trying to watch like 31 films before Halloween and do like a husband-wife sort of little mini podcast on each one after we watch it. And so we're been grabbing a lot of horror films for cheap and working toward that, and something fun for the wife and I to do. Although she hates horror, I don't know. How does your wife feel about horror, Shawn? Does she like horror films, or do you like horror films?
Yeah, she does. We've always watched them together. That's kind of strange that your wife doesn't like them and you make her watch them. Well, that's like my wife making me play Jaws games or something.
It's funny. Like, one of the first dates we went on, we watched a horror movie at her house together. She picked it out, and she has like a love-hate sort of relationship. They scared the crap out of her when she was a kid, but now she kind of gets the I guess when you get older, you sort of see the humor in these things,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that she's gotten to that point, and she just doesn't want to admit that she enjoys them, but I think she really does. So it should be a fun time for us, and we're kind of doing a round robin pick where we can she gets to pick some, I get to pick some, and that sort of thing. So it'll be cool. So be on the lookout for that. But anyway, that's it.
Cool. So we're ready to start talking about our game for this month?
Absolutely. If we must. It's what the fans want.
That's the whole point.
This is a good one. Yeah, take it away, Steve.
So this month, for our community playthrough, I chose Illusion of Gaia for the Super Nintendo. And this is a game that I remember fondly from my childhood. And I guess for the last few years, I felt like this game was going to be a little bit underappreciated. It has its share of fans, but it doesn't get talked about quite as much as a lot of the top games for the system. So I think what I tried to do this month was kind of similar to what you tried to do, Rich, with Medieval. Just trying to expose more people to this game that we remember from when we were younger. And we had a pretty good turnout.
I think so,
Good discussion on the forums. Our participants this month, of course, we had myself and you three guys, Rich, Shawn, and Floyd. And joining us on the forums, we had Addicted, Causey, Dougley007, Raidu, and Untrod Tripod. Mm-hmm. So thanks everybody who participated this month. Before we really dive into the game, Raidu on the forums posted and asked us to sort of briefly talk about our histories and experiences with Super Nintendo RPGs. Because as he puts it, Illusion of Gaia is a bit of an odd duck, whatever that means. But no, I think I would agree with that. It's kind of a unique game compared to a lot of these other Super Nintendo RPGs. So anybody want to go first on that?
Yeah, who wants to start out this loaded question?
Well, I probably have the shortest answers. if you don't mind, I'll go first. So I was like never into RPGs, so I don't have any nostalgia for them because I never played them when I was a kid. I only got into them like, gosh, it must be like 6 or 7 years ago now. But when I did, I realized what I was missing out on and kind of jumped head first into everything. So my history is basically like kind of trying to do the homework of like, playing Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy 4 and 6 and all these, all the like must-haves and the must-plays of the Super Nintendo. So It's really brief. I can't even. I actually read Raidu's question as I'm sitting here at my desk ready to record. I wish I had a second to go and look at my shelf, but
I'm thinking the same thing, man. I'm looking at it right now. I'm stretching my neck, trying to look at it.
But yeah, my history is like kind of brief, but I hit it head on and tried to play all the ones that you're, quote unquote supposed to, or the must plays one, with the exception of Earthbound. I haven't tackled that one yet, but it just was something that I'm not nostalgic for because I didn't grow up with it. So boring answer. I figured I'd get mine out of the way there.
Yeah.
Sure. Anybody else want to go?
Sure.
does.
For me, my cat's back. Let's see. So it's not really an RPG, but if it, sort of SNES era, my history with this sort of genre, and it relates to the game that we played this month. I would say my first closest thing to an RPG would have been Link to the Past.
Okay.
And so that was something that I would always go over to a friend's house and we'd play that together. And then I really didn't get into the genre until sort of the PlayStation era, more so PlayStation 2 era. And then now, like Shawn, I'm sort of going back and filling in these gaps in my history.
Cool. As far as Super Nintendo goes, I probably played more RPGs on the Nintendo than the Super Nintendo, and probably the reason being is I was pretty much a late adopter to the Super Nintendo, as I am with most systems these days, right?
Old habits die hard, huh?
So I mean, well, if it was, my parents weren't very supportive of gaming, and if I wanted a game system, I pretty much had to buy it myself. And as far as games were concerned, it was, birthdays and Christmas. So I was a late adopter of that. My roommate in college, this was, fall of 95. We had a Super Nintendo, and Legend of Zelda, of course, we played. I actually got into Breath of Fire, and played that one. Didn't finish it. But for whatever reason, when it came out, we purchased Chrono Trigger. I have no idea why we bought Chrono Trigger for Super Nintendo. We had just heard good things about it, and luckily, that was the probably the main RPG I played. My roommate was more in sort of dude bro games, like sports games, and then fighting games were really big at the time. Like I remember us buying Killer Instinct, and playing a lot of Street Fighter. And then the PlayStation came out. We ended up getting a PlayStation within, a few months of being in college. We ended up with the PlayStation. And so we kind of moved on to that, and I started playing more games like Final Fantasy VII, and other such RPGs at the time, and probably played a lot more RPGs on the PlayStation than I did the Super Nintendo. So I've got a lot of backlog to go back and take care of. So that's sort of my history.
Okay, cool. So I guess as for me, I started out very young playing Super Nintendo RPGs. A friend of mine who is 10 years older than I am, I've mentioned him several times on the show before. He used to be my neighbor growing up, and he was really into RPGs. And I remember watching him play Final Fantasy 4 and 6, or as it's known in North America on the Super Nintendo 2 and 3. And probably when I was around 7 years old, just on a whim, I put in Final Fantasy 6 and just got really into it, and that's kind of where my start with RPGs started. So from there, I played Final Fantasy 4 as well, and at some point I got Secret of Mana and played a ton of that. And I think I must have been 8 years old when I rented Chrono Trigger, which is my all-time favorite game. I've mentioned that a bunch of times before, and I ended up getting that game for my 9th birthday. So that's my best birthday present I ever got. But Yeah, I mean, I've back in the day, I also played Super Mario RPG. I know I owned Breath of Fire 2, but I don't think I really liked that game as much.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I played a few others, but in more recent years, I've played Breath of Fire, and we also played Secret of Evermore for the playthrough about a year ago. So I haven't played everything, but I've played a good number of Super Nintendo RPGs, and RPGs being my one of, if not my favorite genre of games. That's deeply rooted in the Super Nintendo for me.
Yeah, and one of the good things about Super Nintendo RPGs, it's such a huge jump from what you were used to, as far as Nintendo. I mean, huge jump. As far graphically and what could be done at the time. So it's one of the best systems for RPGs, especially with the earlier systems. Genesis has a few okay and some good RPGs. I love Shining Force, of course, but I don't think it compares to the Super Nintendo. I think Nintendo was where it was really at when it came to RPGs for the time.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So,
all right, so that's just our histories with Super Nintendo RPGs. To get into Illusion of Gaia, it was known as Illusion of Time in Europe and Australia, developed by Quintet and published by Enix in Japan. And I think Enix and Quintet had a close working relationship, because I know most, if not all, of Quintet's games were published by Enix.
Mm-hmm.
However, Illusion of Gaia was published by Nintendo in North America, and it came out in 1994. And the game being published by Nintendo is responsible for some of the changes in the localization process, which we'll probably touch on a little bit later. The game is set in a partially historical but mostly fantasy-based version of Earth. So I guess it's mostly a fantasy world, but you do see some real-life locations. We'll talk about some of the places we visit, but they'll include the pyramids and the Great Wall of China and places like that. And Illusion of Gaia is actually the second game in a loose trilogy of games made by Quintet. The first being Soul Blazer, second, of course, being Illusion of Gaia, and the third being Terranigma, which we mentioned earlier. And Terranigma actually never came out in North America, but it was actually released in Japan and Europe. Just they never brought it to North America for some reason. But these games aren't really that closely related. There's just very light references, not much tying them together really. But have any of you guys played Soul Blazer or Terranigma? Just out of curiosity.
No, I haven't played any of those. I mean, I see Soul Blazer quite often. It's a fairly cheap title for an RPG, seems like.
Maybe.
Yeah, I haven't played them either. So
I haven't played them, but I want to. I mean, sort of. It's always been like this trilogy has been something that I've wanted to tackle. I don't know, for some reason I really like it when games are sort of like these are all loosely related.
Yeah, like
it makes
you
them
don't
feel a little more special.
Direct sequels.
Yeah, like you don't have to
big
play
story.
the first game to appreciate the second.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've played Soul Blazer a little bit. I think I put a few hours into it some years back, and it's actually quite different than Illusion of Gaia. I think Terranigma is much more similar to Illusion of Gaia, but Soul Blazer is kind of its own little thing. But I guess we can start talking about the story. Any of you guys want to kind of give us a brief overview of the story?
Definitely not it.
All right, well, let's maybe we can work together on this one.
Just read it off the outline.
You can play your guitar while you read it.
Okay, so Will accompanies your player characters. Will, and you accompany your father on an expedition to the Tower of Babel. When you're out there, you're met with a mysterious disaster. So the next thing is Will somehow makes it back to his hometown of South Cape, but doesn't remember how. And this is a recurring theme in the game, because I feel like almost every set piece that you get into is Will ends up somewhere but doesn't remember how.
Sure.
But yeah, the beginning of the game sets up the characters, which is Will and his friends Lance, Eric, and Seth in school, and you kind of start exploring the main town. And on the roof or behind one of the buildings is your first dark space, which is also your safe space, where you meet Gaia, and she's going to tell you that you must leave your hometown and save the world from an upcoming evil or a coming evil. And then you are imprisoned by King Edward. And then you end up escaping with the help of Kara, who is the princess. And then that's when the story gets really messed up.
There's like a dandelion seed. It follows you around.
So eventually you find out, the main problem here is that there's a comet approaching the Earth, and in order to stop it, somehow you must collect these 6 statues, and that's kind of the MacGuffin in the game. You have to get statues as you go through. So
why do you have to get statues? Is that ever explained?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. At the end of the game, he just sort of absorbs them, and I think that gives him the power.
That's true.
The comet. But,
that's true.
Yeah, I think throughout the course of the game, it doesn't really tell you why. You just kind of, you're just like, okay, I got to go get those statues now.
Yeah, it's like, I just fell into this black hole. There's this Giger drawing that wants to save my game. I mean, it's kind of freaky, It's like, okay, I'm just going to do what this thing says, and stop this comet.
I think, trying to pull it up here, but Addicted on the forum, he had a kind of a funny little post early on in the thread that says, within the first 30 minutes, you find out your dad is now a flute, you are the chosen one, and only you can visit the dark space. The main character just accepts this with no emotion.
No.
So that kind of...
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
No question of dark powers in this game. Just embrace.
That's right.
Yeah. Kind of bizarre. And I don't think the story gets any less bizarre as you go through it.
No, it doesn't. It almost the story moves very fast and not really a ton of like plot development. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. I kind of feel like they kind of designed this game with some of the more like set pieces and environments in mind, and then just sort of stuck a story in there to make it work, to tie it all together.
Yeah,
kind of feels like an afterthought.
I think you could be right about that. Yeah.
But it's even such like a hodgepodge of places too. I mean, I don't know. I mean, how you even tie a story to any of that? It's very bizarre. It's a mishmash of, like you said, in the beginning, in the intro, like historical, and, some are historical, some are fantasy based, and, some things and events are kind of loosely based on history, and, some have nothing to do with history. Sometimes you're just in a land of mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the good things about this game is that they make as hard as the story is to follow, they don't make it hard to at least try, because the presentation of the game is such that the narration, each character's text is color coded, and I think one of us either texted or commented on the thread how useful and helpful that was.
I didn't notice it. I didn't notice it, and someone pointed it out, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty brilliant.
Yeah,
everyone's
the dialogue flows a lot better.
Yeah,
you always know who's talking, because and the people, like at least your sort of 4 party members, if you can even call them that, right?
Right. Good point.
Because they kind of just follow you around. They don't go into dungeons with you. But yeah, whenever you're in like a dialogue phase, it's sort of like everybody's speech bubble is like color coded to their hair or their clothing.
Right.
So that's why I never had an issue knowing who was talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely a nice touch.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this, and some of you may not agree, but I kind of feel like the story is the weakest part of this game. I'm not saying it's bad, and it's not worth playing this game, because the story's bad. I'm just saying it's very loose, and there's not like a lot of description. You don't get told why you're thrown into this.
No, I agree with you. The story kind of is the and maybe weak link is the wrong word to use, but it's very like it feels like it's kind of slapped together.
Right.
It's sort of like, well, we're here and now we go there, and why? Well, because don't ask questions. We're just going to the next place.
Right. And I kind of feel like some other things that we're going to talk about, I know soon, are so good that it sort of doesn't matter. If you know what I'm saying.
I think there's some things that this game does really well, like I don't know, we're probably going to get into this later, but like, touches some pretty dark themes, like Will's parents are gone, so he meets her like afterlife, spirit forms, and reconciles with that.
I was just thinking about the themes, because we shouldn't I agree, Rich, that the story is probably the weakest part of the game as a whole, but this game touches on some things that are kind of, I mean, at points I was like, wow, this is in this game, like like slave labor, and
exactly, yeah.
What was the
and
other
it's a
one?
big thing. It's not like that's not just in like one town. That plays out throughout the game.
It's a theme. You're right. It's a theme of the whole game. The other thing I was thinking of was the drinking game. There's actually a drinking game that you have to play where you're drinking random cups, taking turns with somebody, and one of the cups is poison, and you actually win this game by having another guy die. So it's kind of crazy.
Fatal illness, and it's a part of the game, and.
But did you guys read? Just sort of going off on a tangent. Did you guys read the Russian glass, the will left to Will?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a nice moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, guy knew he was going to die anyway. He had a fatal illness, knew he was going to die. And if you went and talked to him beforehand, I don't know if you guys did or not, but the wife was pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and she mentions that. When you go talk to them before the game, and so he's played this game basically to collect all of these funds, in order to leave behind a substantial enough amount for his family to live after he's gone, because he knows he's dying. So it's kind of deep for an RPG game, and like you said, there's these little hints, touches, and moments throughout the game. Where it sort of makes you reflect a little bit on your own.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the characters start off as like, stereotypes or archetypes, and they really, they really get more depth as you go. Like I think we'll definitely talk about, the raft scene later.
Yeah,
and we'll learn, Will coming to terms with, being an orphan and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know, yeah. You start the game and your parents are dead. It's like a Disney movie. Did Disney make this?
Yeah. I guess overall I'd agree with that assessment that the story is probably the one of the weaker parts of the game. But I guess games at this time really weren't story heavy. I mean, I think some of the Final Fantasy games had, more involved stories, but I guess gameplay was the focus here, and I think they did well with that. So unless you guys have anything else you want to touch on with the story, we want to talk about
I kind of have a bit of a theory as to why it's really weird, sort of disjointed story, but I don't know, maybe I should save that for later.
I think you should save that for your final thoughts.
Yeah.
Because I have some thoughts on the end of the story too, Floyd, but I really like I know where you're going, because you mentioned it on the thread, and so so you definitely should save that to the end, man. That's a really good, I really like that. I thought that was a great idea you had.
Agreed. I would just say, as crazy and wacky and sometimes hard to follow as the story was, at least it wasn't dull. Like, I'd rather have a kind of an off-the-wall story than like a boring one. So at least there was that. Like, even Addicted said on the forum, like, I was hoping this story would go off the rails at the end, and it totally did, like, so I agree with that, like, sentiment of the craziness of the story.
And that adds to the pacing, as he said too, right? So everything's just sort of like, you're always moving on. There's no like exposition dumps or anything. It's always like steady pace from beginning to end.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So as far as the gameplay goes, this is a action RPG with hack and slash sort of elements. It has a perspective of like a Zelda game or like Secret of Mana or Secret of Evermore, but gameplay wise, it's more like a simplified Secret of Mana or Secret of Evermore. But it kind of has that feel to it. Throughout the game, Shawn mentioned earlier that you find these dark space places, which kind of serve as save points, and you can also like refill your health there. But one other thing you can do in the dark space areas is transform. You can there are two characters that you get to transform into, one being Frieden, who you can transform into pretty early in the game, and then Shadow, who you can transform into much later.
Yeah, really at the end.
Yeah, it's like the last dungeon.
Level.
Yeah. The last true level, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought the transforming aspect was cool. It's something that I feel like is pretty unique to this game, where I guess maybe some games have it where you would actually switch your people, and in this game you actually become these other characters.
Yeah.
And it's Frieden and Shadow are both stronger. They sort of have their own unique abilities, and I think with Frieden, but probably Shadow too, their abilities kind of play into like the puzzle elements as well.
Yes.
So yeah, all the characters have a certain abilities they get access to. So Will can he gets like this sort of charge attack, which I didn't use very much. He gets a slide, which I end up using a lot more.
Well, I see a lot of people using that. Yeah.
Yeah, I used it a lot for combat because I was already running anyway from one area to another. So if there was an enemy, I just slide into them, and it was actually a very effective attack. But
yeah, because you actually get a little bit of a break when you slide into them. It's not like you pop up, and if you don't kill them, then they automatically hit you. You get a little bit of a reprieve, so you can actually attack in between that after you hit them. So, you kind of charge them with a strong attack. And I think I know where I saw this now. It was watching your gameplay videos that you put up. That's what it was. You put some up on YouTube for us.
Yeah, but I uploaded a video of myself playing through the pyramid. The Great Wall of China.
Great Wall of China, yeah.
Great Wall of China dungeon in the game, and I went back and watched it too, and I noticed I used the slide a lot as an attack. But you can also use it to access certain areas. There might be sort of holes in the walls that you can slide through, and that gives that lets Will access places that the other characters can't access because they're too large or they don't have the slide attack or whatever. But Frieden gets a couple of unique abilities. He can throw a fireball.
Yeah, which is nice for puzzles because you have to. There's some things that you have to hit from a distance in order to activate, like a switch, or even to like clear a level. Sometimes clear all the enemies off of the level. Yep. Yeah,
because sometimes you'll have to kill all the enemies, so like a wall or a barrier will disappear, and the fireball is very effective for that. Shadow has a unique thing where he can sort of turn into a puddle. It's a good way to dodge attacks, and in the pyramid, you actually use that to get to some of the lower levels. But there's also one thing that all three characters can do, and that is there's like if you press the L or R buttons, you sort of do this like absorb thing. You can pull objects towards you, and with Will, he spins his flute around, which I guess sort of makes like a whirlwind thing. But yeah, you can pull.
It's kind of his telekinesis, right? They talk about that early in the game when you hang out with your buddies.
His special powers, yeah.
This one time at band camp.
Yeah.
Oh God!
I spun my flute around and I moved some statues. And you do that for a bit of puzzle solving too.
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes you have to pull the statues in certain places and hit pressure switches or whatever. But very important part of the game. Oh, and it can also be used to block projectiles, which I don't think I realized until kind of late in the game. But it's something you can do as well. You have items in the game, but there's not a ton. Most of the items you get are actually sort of story or puzzle related. But there are herbs in the game, and I think somebody on the forum looked it up, and there's only 12 herbs in the game total, and those are the only items you get to heal yourself.
Yeah, besides the dark space when you go into that.
Yeah, you can heal in the dark space as well. So a little stingy with the healing items, but
well, the game's pretty good about having a dark space very close to the final battles a lot of times. So
yeah, I mean,
there's that.
I didn't really run out of herbs until maybe the very end, like on the final boss or something. But so I didn't really have a problem with that. But it's 12. When you think about an entire game, and you only get 12 healing items, and that's if you actually find them all. That seems pretty light. But you also have red gems, which, as somebody mentioned, can clog up your inventory pretty fast. But we found out you can use them in your inventory, and that actually transports them to the jeweler guy who is...
Yeah, I think I figured that out accidentally, and I was like, "Oh no, did I lose that?" But no,
me too. Same thing happened to me
because I didn't have the guide, so I had no idea. But I think one thing that you brought up, and I just wanted to briefly talk about this before I forget. Like, you're talking about items. It's probably important to note that, like, with a lot of RPGs, there are always like item shops and things like that where you could buy stuff, and there's currency.
Right.
This game has no currency.
That's right.
No currency, no shops, right?
Nope. Nothing like that.
So there's no different weapons or armor to equip. There's no items you can buy. So yeah, it's very, very light in that department. Yeah, no currency at all, unless you count the red jewels, which it's not really the same thing. But throughout the game, you find these little hidden red jewels. There are 50 total, and they're pretty well hidden. Like you can't actually see them in the environment. You just kind of have to inspect,
search,
various things in the environment and hope you find them,
or do little quests. Like I know in the one town, what's your cousin's name in the game? I can't remember his name in the game. Neil. Yeah. In Neil's town, there's a girl that like you have to keep bringing apples to.
Yeah,
you have to do that so many times.
I gave up on that.
I had brought her one apple, and I was like, "Well, she just wants another one. I'm leaving. Yeah, I'm not gonna." Keep
I did the same thing.
You have to do it like 5 times, and I just I did it like 4 times. I was like, forget it, and I came back to the town later. Because that's one of the things you can't do in this game. I guess we should mention is you can't backtrack in this game, which stinks. Until toward the end of it, you can go back and forth.
Or you can backtrack a little bit, like 1 or 2 towns, but that's about it.
Well, that's only at the end of the game.
Yeah, it also depends on where you are too.
That's only at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So if you miss a gem, you can't go back and get it, which that kind of stinks.
So it makes it very difficult to collect all 50. But you can turn these gems into the jeweler guy who's located in most of the towns, and you get various rewards for hitting certain milestones with your gem collecting. So I think the first one, he gives you an herb, and he'll give you like a strength upgrade, a defense upgrade, a life upgrade, and certain upgrades to your powers. But which I guess we should talk about the leveling system, which is this game doesn't have experience points like typical RPGs. It instead, there's no experience points, there's no levels. Instead, in every dungeon, in every room, when you clear out all the enemies in the room, you gain like a +1 bonus, permanent +1 bonus to either your strength, defense, or your life.
Right.
And that's how leveling works in this game, and it's something I feel is pretty unique to this game. I can't think of another game that does something exactly like this. But yeah, I feel like I like the system. It's like a very kind of like an instant gratification kind of thing. Whereas, in other RPGs, you'll have to kill a ton of enemies to gain a lot of experience, and then you'll gain a level which gives you a certain amount of stat bonuses. Whereas in this game, you just have to clear out one room, and that's an increase in your strength or an increase in your life, and it feels, I guess, tangible to me, for lack of a better word. Like I really notice the benefits, like when
it gives every. Yeah, I think what you're trying to say is it gives every upgrade like value.
Yeah, like it feels significant.
It gives killing enemies a purpose as well, too.
That's right, yeah.
And once you clear a room, those enemies don't come back. So you can't continue to get upgrades, but at the same time, when you go back to an area, you don't have to fight through those enemies again and go through it, which is a really nice plus.
Yeah, enemies don't respawn. They will respawn if you leave the dungeon and come back, but that you won't be able to like get another stat bonus. But yeah, as long as you remain in the dungeon, then yeah, the enemies will not respawn. So, what we were talking about before with the jewels, if you collect all 50 and talk to the jeweler guy in the game, you can gain
He's got a secret.
Yeah, he's got a secret to tell you, and that secret is he's going to warp you to I guess what is usually considered the most difficult dungeon in the game, and then you have to fight a boss by the name of Solid Arm, and it's supposed to be a very difficult boss fight. I've never actually done this myself because, I mean, it's so difficult to collect all 50 jewels, but yeah, it's apparently a pretty difficult boss fight, and the reward for doing all this is absolutely nothing. You get nothing for completing the dungeon or beating the boss.
I'm assuming no one did this.
I didn't. I didn't think any of you guys would.
Yeah,
No.
I would have, because I like doing additional stuff like this, but quite honestly, after I had started the game, I didn't know about it, and then I found out about it, and I was like, well, I can't go back and get those jewels, so I'm already like past the first checkpoint or whatever, so I'm not going to go back and restart.
Yeah, I guess I should have put some kind of disclaimer in the thread, because I know Dougley 007 kind of posted something similar about wanting to go back and get the jewels, but yeah, I didn't think anybody would do it, honestly.
Yeah.
One interesting thing about the Solid Arm boss is he's actually a boss from Soul Blazer. Yeah.
I read that.
Yeah. So I guess it's funny. I watched a video on this, and the dialogue for fighting Solid Arm, he says something about how he's the one who manipulated the labor trade and started all that. I guess all the laborers are supposed to be mining for the gems or something, because all 50 gems being gathered are what would release him back into the world or something. It's more craziness that what you'd expect from this game, but
and like you said, I mean, the reward for beating him is nothing. It reminds me of Super Mario RPG. You remember that? There's like a secret boss. Did any of you guys do that when we played Super Mario RPG?
Wasn't it like a Final Fantasy boss too?
I think you're right.
I know about it, but I definitely didn't do it. I
know what you're
heard
talking
of it,
about,
though.
and I don't think I went for that.
Yeah, I did actually beat it when we played that game, and it was the hardest boss in the game for sure. But yeah, it was just kind of neat. I kind of like extra stuff like that. It's kind of nice, to have an option, something to figure out, and I guess it gives it a little bit of replay value, right? And trying to find all the gems. If you play through one time, you're like, oh, I didn't get all those gems. Maybe it gives a little bit of incentive to go back and play it again.
Yeah, actually, I don't remember if I did that with Super Mario RPG. I want to say I didn't, but it's definitely something to keep in mind if I ever play that game again, which I'm sure I will sooner or later. It's one of my favorites.
Absolutely. Yep.
I also want to talk about some of the more story-like moments in the game, some of the pensive RPG moments, if you will. And I think Floyd or somebody on the call alluded to the drifting on the raft as being kind of an important, one of the more like story-driven moments in the game. The raft, well, I guess what the raft scene is you're just kind of stranded on a raft, and it's Will and Kara, and they're out there on the sea for like, I don't know, is it like a month or something? I forget how long it is.
A few months, I think.
Like 3 weeks. No, maybe it's longer.
Maybe.
They're stuck in the cave for like a month. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of the few places I feel like we see some character development. Kara is she kind of starts becoming a little less bratty during this scene and grows up a little bit.
She's a princess.
Yeah,
no
she's
pun
a
intended.
princess. But this is a scene that even when I played this game as a kid, this is a scene that really stuck with me for some reason. It's one of the few things I really remembered about this game, and it's interesting because not nothing really happens like gameplay wise. It's all story, but I think it's just such an interesting part of the game.
I think what makes it interesting is that it's one of those things, like it's 16-bit, but it does a really good job of conveying that kind of, it's like one of those innate fears everybody has, being lost at sea. You know what I mean? It's a really basic human emotion, and especially when the sharks start circling the raft. But I got the sense like, wow, that would be scary. Like, and like the companionship. Well, at least they have each other, kind of thing. There's like these really basic human emotions going on in this scene, and I think that's why. Even before it was commented on, I was thinking, wow, like, this is really cool that this is in here. And then, of course, going to the forum, it's like everybody kind of honed in on it as being a special moment. And so
these 16 bits are giving me the feels.
I don't know. Were there any others that you guys can think of? Scenes kind of like this? That's the only one that really comes to mind for me. But,
there was the cave too. You're down in that cave for like 3 months or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eating mushrooms.
What about
yeah, you
the labor traders?
Yep. Yep.
Sure.
The native village. There's the
native village. That's another. Yeah, that's another good moment. And how about in Moo, when you learn about what happened to Moo? You guys don't remember?
What happened to Moo?
No. The only thing I remember about Moo is I hated that level. That was my least favorite.
Oh, that was one of my favorites.
Yeah, I always.
Where they were the ones that were all turned into demons, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Now I remember. I got a little confused with the jackal, which is another awesome scene.
Oh.
That's a cool scene too.
I'm glad you brought that one up, because the jackal. That's sort of a weird story arc in this game, because for the entire game you hear about this guy, the jackal, and his name keeps popping up throughout the game, and then you finally see him at the end of the game, and he just sort of combusts or something.
Flute on that fool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steven, I don't know if did you go into that room before the scene? Because there's actually a dude in there who tells you the room's booby trap, don't make any sound. So, of course, I played the flute first thing, just to see what would happen.
Yeah.
And it does, like, spray, there's 2 statues that shoot fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I did talk to that guy. I guess the, as far as, like, this jackal thing in general, it felt kind of unnecessary. Like, nothing really happened with him.
It was a huge build.
Yeah.
It was really weird, right? Like, where did he come from? What the hell is he doing?
And then you see him, and he just dies, and nothing really. There's no fight. There's not even a lot of dialogue, But I thought that was kind of a weird little story arc.
That was kind of that arc was kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah, it was.
But like you think he's chasing you because you kidnapped Kara, and so you think that he's trying to bring her back to the castle, but it turns out that Kara's parents, the king and queen, are pretty shady characters themselves, and he's the jackal's. He's a mercenary, so he'll do anything to get paid, but that's like a bit of a minor twist, but definitely his kind of story is. You think it's going to be something interesting, but it turns out that it's not.
Yeah, pretty much.
So one of the set pieces that really made me squirm, despite the fact that I even had it spoiled for me before I played the game, watching a review on YouTube, was the part where Hamlet, Hamlet is Kara's pet pig.
He commits porcicide.
Yeah, he sacrifices himself so that you won't get eaten by the starving villagers who have resorted to cannibalism. And it's, I don't know, like I don't know. I have pets. I'm an animal lover. Like, I don't know, that kind of stuff just, I don't want to sound like oversensitive, or I wasn't offended. I don't care. Like, it's just a Super Nintendo game, but I don't know. Like, again, just it made me squirm, made me a little uncomfortable.
If you're trying to sympathize with Kara and put yourself in her shoes, that'd be awful if your pet just jumped in a fire.
Yeah,
Speak
exactly.
For yourself.
I guess
mine is still crapping and peeing all over my house.
Well, you gotta
I'd
train
love for
them.
my dog to jump into a fire. No, I'm kidding. I love my dog.
Yeah. No, I guess that's that. I think you just nailed it on the head. That's exactly what I was probably identifying with.
I had,
and the script again, even the dialogue, the translation in this game is pretty good. I mean, it gets across what it needs to get across, and there's definitely some emotion in that scene.
Mm-hmm. Well, his name's Hamlet. I mean, of course, there's the ham, but it's it's the tragic hero. Hamlet.
Yeah, there's that. It's like his selfless moment, right?
Right.
I'm going to sacrifice so this this tribe can eat.
Right.
And I think one of your friends even says, "To eat or not to eat? That is the question."
Yeah, that was a little.
There's a lot
Too
of cheesy
soon.
moments too.
Too soon. I'm still mourning. Animated pigs will do that to you.
Anything else with the story before we move on?
I think one of the abilities that we forgot to mention was Will's spin ability, which was sort of an aggravating mechanic.
Yeah,
that was a pain.
It took me a while to
learn that.
Most
it took
of
me
the
a
time.
little bit. You can watch it in my video. That the dungeon is the Great Wall of China is where you get that ability. You can see I'm kind of fumbling with it a little bit, but
I had to look it up. I think I went through it
I
too
couldn't
quick.
figure out how to do it. I had to
it took me
read a
minute.
guide.
But it's necessary to sort of get over ramps and things that you normally can't walk up.
And you get a similar, the same mechanic for an ability with Frieden for like this semi very short a few second shield, but I never used it.
Oh yeah,
I didn't use that once.
It seemed like
I
it
couldn't even
lasted
figure
for
out what you're talking
it
about
seemed like
for
it
a minute.
lasted for 2 seconds and then went
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
I didn't know if I was
Never
doing it
used that.
wrong or not or what, but if that's the case, then it seemed pretty useless.
Yeah.
Oh, Frieden also had the earthquake ability. If he jumped off a platform.
Yeah.
I used it once.
Again, this one, I think
Use it
you
once
only
for
have
puzzle.
to use it once. Yeah,
it seemed
exactly.
a little tacked on, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought for the most part though, the abilities were really cool, and they aided with the puzzle in the game. And then like you said, some of them seemed kind of tacked on, and I wish they would have been used a little more in the game, to figure out some of the puzzles. But if they would have been used a little more, I'd have probably gotten a lot more confused about what I needed to do next, at the same time. So a bit of an overload, or I don't know. I guess if they would have used them more consistently, I wouldn't have been as confused. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And also,
So.
the abilities are good for kind of bringing some variety to the different characters you can control, which is always nice.
Yeah. So I just did want to mention that.
You want to start talking about the various areas in the game, or you guys want to keep talking about the story? Or?
Let's talk about some dungeons and towns.
So I have them all listed in the outline. We don't have to talk about all of them, but if there's any that stand out to you guys as being favorites or least favorites, and I think it's worth talking about.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to remember what the Incan ruins were like. I can't remember.
That's the
those off
one
top
where
of my head.
you're on the mountain cliffside and there's wind and there's that floor tile you have to stand on for 15 seconds before the door
And
appears.
the big heads on the cliffside.
and I couldn't figure out that room, and I think I was texting you guys, what the hell do I do right here? And I was standing on the tile, and I was like, oh, okay.
That's the only part of the game I had to look up what to do, because I'm like, okay, the tile's glowing. What do I do with it? And you just have to stand there for 15 seconds or something. It's a much longer period of time than it needs to be.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. My favorite dungeon was the Great Wall of China, because I didn't have too much of a problem just finding my way around, but I did get lost in a few of the dungeons, not to the point where I was like, oh, this game sucks. I can't believe, I wasn't frustrated, but there was sometimes I just found myself, okay, where am I? What am I doing here? What's going on here? But for some reason, the Great Wall of China just kind of clicked with me, and I just kind of cruised through. Maybe it was an easier dungeon, and I just, got through it easier, but I just found myself kind of cruising through the puzzles and the rooms, and there's all different floors and rooms you can go in, and I was just kind of having a good time.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. I don't think that was any easier than any of the other dungeons. I think what it is I could see myself, like, there were certain dungeons that I had an easier time with, and you guys were like, oh, wait till you get to this dungeon, this sucks, and I had an easy time with it. And then some of the other ones, like Mew, who Floyd says, oh, I love that one, I didn't have any problems with that one. I mean, that was, like, the most aggravating to me. I feel like, I guess, sometimes you just have, like, kind of a good dungeon run that just kind of fell, the right way, if you will, like from exploring. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you wouldn't. Sometimes you would have a more difficult time with something that, someone else might have an easier time with. It just kind of how it plays out, how it kind of falls into your lap as you're playing through it. That's the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, I think Shawn says something like that in our text. Like I mentioned the mountain temple being my least favorite, which is the
mushrooms?
The mushroom place.
Oh, I love that one. That's like my favorite.
I got really lost in that one, and I don't know if it's just because of how I kind of play these games. I sort of like usually systematically like clear it out and explore and try to do things in a certain pattern so I don't get lost and I end up exploring everything. But I guess with the mountain temple there were more like split paths, and I'm not really sure what it was.
Well, I think because of the ramps. There's so many ramps in there.
Yeah, there's ramps that sort of you'll jump across them and it'll take you to some other area on the map. Yeah, that's a good point.
And then a lot of the ramps would go to those like bouncy mushrooms.
Yeah,
that would take you to like a whole other side of the dungeon.
Yeah. But even
a lot of it is you're kind of focused on trying to clear out areas too, and take out all the enemies. And so I think sometimes you kind of get lost in your thoughts of where these enemies are and stuff, and you lose kind of concentration as far as what your direction is on the map and where you're at. Do you know what I mean?
I think you got it right there, right? Because there's so much there's so much value, as we already said, in clearing out a room, so you can like put priority in that, and that's how you get lost in a dungeon.
You mentioned the map, which you press the start button and it brings up like a map screen, but it's almost like it's not really a map. It doesn't really show you the layout of the dungeon. It's almost like the map in the original Zelda. I call it a
radar, actually.
It's almost like it reminds me of the map in the original Zelda, where it's just like a flat thing and it just kind of shows you things. But in this game you could see it'll show you like where the enemies were, if you were trying to clear them all out. But it doesn't actually show you the layout of the dungeon, so it's not really useful for keeping you on track and help you to not get lost. But I guess with the mountain temple, I just couldn't find my way through it. Took a lot of trial and error, and even after I completed the dungeon and just needed to get out, I had a hard time finding my way out, which is kind of a little frustrating. But I didn't have too much trouble with it, but that was my least favorite.
Yeah, that was one of the tougher ones to get out of. I think for me that one was sort of like it was sort of all the vines that you would grow were sort of centrally located on one board. So that was sort of like my center, and I would always come back to my center, and and I figured it out from there. And then I don't know. Sometimes I can keep stuff like that in my head as far as direction and sort of where I'm at and where I need to be. And that was just one of the cases there. I didn't have a lot of time with a lot of trouble with it, but I did have a lot of problem with Mew, as I mentioned, and I actually fought the vampire bosses. I fought them with Will.
Oh, that must have been tough.
That was tough, man, because I couldn't figure out how to get around that. I could not figure out how to.
I think if you just if you backtrack like 2 or 3 screens, you can, or 2 or 3 rooms, you can turn into Friedan.
I couldn't figure it out, man. I finally just had a save point. I just ended up hitting reset, and I was like, forget it. I'm just gonna go from here, and just go as Will, and just beat it.
I think the direct path is to slide through a hole, and that kind of gets you right or very close to the boss. But if you're Friedan, you can't slide through the hole, but should be like a roundabout path that you can take to get to it.
There's a longer way you can kind of go around.
Yeah.
See that boss, the few of these bosses gave me a real hard time. But definitely the vampires, as Will, were super tough. And then as Friedan, I think it took me like 2 or 3 tries.
Yeah, it took me a lot more than that with Will.
I think I must have done it like at least 10 times as well. And like
20 for me, man. It took me a long time to beat that with Will, because not only is the fight like difficult and annoying, but it's also on a timer.
Yeah. See, whenever I have a timer in a game, I feel so pressured and so rushed. Like for me, it makes it so much more difficult.
Yeah, it makes me make sillier mistakes. So
with timers, you got to take Krabby. His advice on a really old episode of the Collector Cast was just ignore them. Just completely ignore any timers in games and just do what you got to do. And
it's good advice.
Yeah, that's true. Because they always give you enough pressure off.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know, guys. Any other like spots? Any like favorite areas? I mean, I mentioned I loved the Mountain Temple, and the Pyramid might have been my favorite. I really loved the Pyramid.
Pyramid was really cool. Like I liked its design.
Yep.
But so like my number one favorite would have to be Moo, but coming in at a really close second would be Angkor Wat. I thought that was a really fun.
There we go again. That was by far my least favorite one.
that one was one of the more challenging ones for me, but
yeah, I'd agree with that. I found that one to be the most challenging from a like a gameplay difficulty, like enemy wise.
Exactly.
Perspective.
That was the one where I just found myself the most like getting lost and like, oh, where do I go? Oh, now I'm in this section with bushes and I don't even know where I can walk.
Yeah, the bush section was annoying.
Yeah, so that one was a bummer for me. But what was I gonna say? Oh, I was gonna say something, but then the subject got changed. I forgot. All right, somebody else.
You're gonna talk about bushes?
Yeah, I love bushes.
I think I enjoyed all the dungeons in the game, except Mountain Temple being my least favorite. I guess I didn't hate it, but that was kind of the low point of the game for me. But all the others, I liked pretty well.
Oh, I was just going to agree with Rich or Floyd about the pyramid being really well done. And other than the Great Wall, I like the pyramid probably the second most because it threw the entire game's bag of tricks at you, and you had to strategically use all three characters to get through each of these.
You can use all of your abilities too.
Yeah.
Right. The dungeon is divided into 6 sections where you have to pick these stone tablets to take to the main room, and each one is challenging in a totally different way, and you got to kind of go in and say, oh, okay, I need freedom here, and go back out and switch, which would sound kind of tedious and not fun, but it actually, like, once you see what you have to do and, oh, I got to go switch, and then I can do that, and it's kind of exciting. So, the pyramid was pretty awesome.
I agree. It wasn't so much backtracking that it was annoying, and the fact that you could clear out enemies and you just run back through real quick made it easy.
And a little bit of a fast travel, because at the end of each segment of the dungeon there was kind of like a portal that took you to the main room again.
Great
point. Wasn't that bad at all. One
thing that was a little annoying, but I think was sort of well done with the game too, is and I noticed this, you guys were talking about Angkor Wat, was the fact that like you would kill all the enemies on the board and you're like, oh my god, there's one more left, how do I get to that one? And then you would have to go through like another area and come back.
Yeah, that happens a few times.
Yeah, happens quite a bit in the
game. I remember that does happen in one area, one of the outdoor areas in Angkor Wat, and I actually looked it up, and it's like, no, you have to like keep progressing, you'll come back around to kill that one enemy.
You're always afraid you're going to miss something, though, and you're not going to get that upgrade. Yeah, you're like, I'm going to need to be strong to beat this game.
You spent like an hour just looking for that one enemy. Yeah.
Are there any places where you guys just kind of gave up, like trying to kill all the enemies in an area? There was one for me.
I mean, to my knowledge,
I think it happened for me.
I mean, to my knowledge, I killed all the enemies, but I made it a point to press start and make sure I killed everything, but I still was short like one half of a health segment at the end of the game, so I'm not sure what went wrong. So maybe I missed one of the I think there's 1 or 2 places in the game where you can find like an item that increases your life, but I'm not sure where I missed that.
Oh, did you do the waiting in line thing?
No, I didn't.
That was it.
Okay.
That was it.
Yeah.
That's where you missed it.
That must have been it.
Yeah, the waiting in line in the village. That was kind of neat.
You know what's funny about that? I played this game on the Retron 5 with the Retron 5 controller, and it actually has like a fast forward button. And I thought, why in the heck would anybody want to use this for anything unless you were playing Tetris on easy and wanted to increase the difficulty on the fly? Like, but
they
then
made
it's
it
like,
just for that one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I have to stand in this line. I don't
man.
think so. So just fast forwarded my way through into the shop. That was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And riding the in water, is it Water Maria? Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
waiting
the rafts.
for the rafts to go back and forth. I fast forwarded a little bit because that got a little tedious. So.
Oh man. This will kind of segue us into our next segment, and something I did want to mention too was, the funny thing about all the dungeons, like with a lot of games, like your Zelda games and such, your dungeons are like you always expect a boss battle at the end of each dungeon. Mm-hmm. And there are quite a few times in this game where you don't have boss battles, but you might just be going to find an item. And I remember in Angkor Wat, I was like, well, I got this thing. Am I done now?
Right.
Like, sent you guys a message. I'm like, because I don't want to leave this dungeon and not be finished, because there wasn't a boss battle. There wasn't anything except that item to suggest that maybe that's all I needed there.
Yeah.
And that happened a few times in the game.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was intentional or maybe they just ran out of time implementing bosses. I don't know. It seems like it kind of goes against like your typical formula not to have a big boss battle at the end of every dungeon, but yeah, this game was fairly light on the boss fights.
I was okay with that because the ones they did have were kind of rough, especially at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people had trouble with Castoth, who's I think probably one of the more popular. Like if you type in Illusion of Gaia into Google, you're probably going to find a screenshot of this boss.
He's cool.
I think he's like the coolest looking boss in the game. I think it's one of the more intricate boss fights in the game, and is one of the more difficult ones too.
Well, I think he's difficult because he has so little health.
Yeah, it's the first boss in the game, so you're not really that powerful yet. But he has a lot of projectiles, a lot of attacks that are kind of difficult to avoid.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in that fight.
Yeah,
but I would probably call this one of my favorite fights just because of its being a little more intricate and just a cool looking boss. So the other ones, I don't want to say they seemed bad or boring or generic or anything, but to me they just didn't quite live up to the first boss fight.
Well, it's a pacing fight.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just like rush in there and just start whacking away. Like with the next fight with Viper, which strangely named, it's like a Moa head, like with a bird, wings that comes down. And you just kind of beat the crap out of that, and it's over with fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. The vampires, there's some strategy in that, but with this one, you're just kind of beating on them. With this one, it's sort of a slow burn. Mm-hmm. You have, like Floyd said, you don't have a lot of health, and you have to kind of be a little bit more patient, and you have to kind of just sort of ride out, the different, how do I want to say it? Not different techniques, but the different stages of the battle with him. With the eye lasers and the hands and. And dodging the bouncing projectiles and the flame that's going around. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on. So,
and the Mummy Queen's kind of the same way.
I like that fight. You have to
kind of wait because I think there's like flames that she'll kind of turn into flames or something, and you have to strike them. And I don't know. I kind of felt like that was my least favorite. I found it to be
which one?
The Mummy Queen. I found it to be one of the more difficult ones. Actually, the only Castoff took me a couple of tries, but other than that, I think the Mummy Queen was like the only one that took me more than one try.
Oh, really?
Except for maybe like
the first time
boss, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah. My strategy wasn't good the first time. They came at the same time.
You're kind of avoiding. You're kind of avoiding things by portaling and diving down.
Right. Exactly.
And you got to keep kind of moving. It's a strange fight. How about Sandfanger? Sounds like something a redneck gets at the beach. I got the Sandfinger, so I couldn't eat my peanut butter and jelly.
Oh my goodness.
That was an easy fight.
I really like that one. I mean, it was really easy.
Easiest fight in the game.
Yeah.
No, I thought Viper was probably the easiest because you can just wail on him. But I thought Sandfanger was kind of fun. You're kind of chasing this giant sandworm at the bottom of the Great Wall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was probably the most Zelda-esque of the
I got
enemies, right?
Vibe from that one too. I think it reminded me of the boss from the second dungeon in A Link to the Past, because there were also like these sandworms that jump out of the ground.
Yeah, maybe that's what I was trying to put my finger on it. I think that's what it was.
Are we trying to put your finger on it? We do fight. We have fought a lot of things in the playthroughs that jump out of the sand. There was the boss in the Shadow of the Colossus that you have to shoot in the eye, right?
There was one in Wind Waker too, I believe.
And the flying one that would dive down in the sand from Shadow of the Colossus. So we have a thing with sand.
I guess so. There was also a boss gauntlet at the end of the game, which was pretty rough.
That was rough.
This is my second least favorite thing, right behind boss QTEs.
Dude, I'm totally with you. As everybody knows how much I hate QTEs in general. And then, boss gauntlets are just like, all right, come on. Like, is this just to pad the game? I'm thinking in a lot of cases it is just to pad the game, and this is probably one of them. Yeah, I like at least they changed the skins. You know, the color scheme is totally different. Mm-hmm. You're in a different environment, and kind of working your way towards what you know is going to be the end of the game.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the fights are easier because you're stronger.
Right. Yeah, you get to play as Shadow, right? And so you're kind of playing as you're playing as stronger versions of every boss you already encountered.
And it's after the first 2 or 3 of those bosses, you can actually save and refill your health, but then you have to fight like 3 of them in a row on like the same health bar, which is very difficult. That's what makes that boss gauntlet difficult.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I just found out if you died, you came back with full health.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing. There are these little orbs you kind of find throughout the game, and they kind of give you these extra lives. And I think this was really the only, this and a little bit in Angkor Wat was like the only places in the game where I kind of used that. But yeah, it was kind of, I guess, a nice feature.
Those orbs you collect, they kind of give you, it's almost like a continue, right?
Yeah.
But like even after you run out of those orbs, if you get a game over on a boss, it's not like totally game over. You just come back with full health.
Oh, half health.
Really?
You don't get full.
Well, that's when you're coming back with when those orbs are reviving you. But like when you have none left, like because Castoth is like my worst enemy. I hate him.
Oh yeah.
Even his boss gauntlet version gave me a headache. Like still that was one of the hardest bosses in the game.
Yeah, I would always with the initial boss fights, if I died, I would just hit reset.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I didn't do that.
Yeah, because I wanted to keep my continues just in case, because I thought those were going to be so valuable later. Turns out not so much.
I don't know why they did this. But like if you run out of, at least in the Tower of Babel, right? If you run out of your continues, you just and you die in a boss fight, you come back with full health.
Wow.
Yeah, I think somebody in the forums mentioned that too. Pretty sure it was either Addicted or Raidu. I'm not sure which, but
I don't know if it's everywhere else in the game, but it was definitely in the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So we have the final boss as well. The comet you keep hearing about in the game is like the first phase. And he's kind of a pushover. The comet is.
It's like a face that spits these blue or these green blobs. And
which is the perfect time to
shoot them with your...
The blobs raining down is the perfect time to use Shadow's little puddle thing he does, because you're invulnerable while you do it. Yeah.
See, I just dodged them. It wasn't that hard.
Yeah, I just turned into a puddle, and it lasts almost as long as the raining green things do.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he just hit his face.
That was one of the things now that you're mentioning the puddle, it's one of the things I didn't like about the game was there's some items like you had to have equipped to use them. I just kind of felt like that puddle ability should just been something that you absorbed and just had that you could use.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
but maybe there's no way to, set it up in the game.
See, but at that point, all I had in my inventory was that song,
the journal,
the will, the letter from Will's not parents, aunt and uncle or grandparents or whatever.
The cup game letter too, probably.
And then the cup game letter, and then like 2 herbs, and I think the crystal glasses or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
So like it didn't really bother me that the puddle ability was an item as well. So
yeah, I had to switch it off and on to do things, and it especially bothered me in the I'm kind of getting off topic here, but in the pyramid area, because I would always have to look at the letter from Will's father to know where to place the tiles, because I didn't go get them all first and then place them. I placed them as I grabbed them, so I'd have to switch out that and then the puddle item.
Did you notice that the room that you went into was also related to the spot on the wall? Like if you went into the second room, it was the second slot on the wall.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
No.
Oh.
I didn't.
Okay.
I just kept going back to the letter to figure out, what the next piece of it was. So, interesting.
Yeah, I did that until I realized, like, hey, I got this from the 4th room, and it's the 4th, 4th slot on the wall, and then, yeah, that's
interesting. All right, so Chaos Comet, Dark Gaia.
Dark Gaia is the final form of the final boss.
Very cool looking.
Yeah,
he is really cool looking.
I guess the evil version of the Gaia you've seen in the dark spaces this whole time.
It looks like that thing at the top of the waterfall in Contra with the head of a Giger painting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This one was kind of tricky if you don't know the strategy. Like I lost this fight on the first try because I seemed really difficult, so I think I went and just looked up like a strategy and used that. But it's kind of to block the green things he shoots at you, and there's these bubbles coming after you, which if you kind of just stay in the same spot, they're not much of a hazard.
Yeah, that's what I did. I kind of stood just below the middle and kept shooting up. And then you do that like fire aura thing, and that protects you from the electric orbs or whatever they are.
Right.
Yeah. Took me a while to figure that out too, and I think someone on our forums said that they were running from them, like sprinting away from them, and you could outrun them and escape them that way. Yeah.
Wow. Huh.
Until they learned like how you could actually block them. So
you couldn't block the that laser beam though.
Yeah,
that you actually had to get out of the way for.
I used the puddle again. So.
You and your puddle.
Hey, it works.
Puddle master.
So yeah, it was a pretty cool final boss fight. I enjoyed it.
It wasn't super hard. I think I was expecting something harder, but
a little bit of a learning curve, which was nice. I like that on the final boss fight. Yeah. So.
All right. So I guess we'll move on to the graphics of the game, which I thought the game looked pretty good. Good detail, good sprite work, some good animations. Your guys' thoughts?
I liked it.
I was a big fan. Yeah, no, I was gonna just say the same thing. I thought the sprite work was really good. The animations. I liked Will's spinning the flute animation a lot. I don't know why. It's just so it's really mesmerizing. I don't know, but yeah, a lot of detail in the sprites. The colors were really good. As far as 16-bit stuff goes, this is maybe not the cream of the crop, but it's pretty dang good, for sure.
A little bit of mode 7 in places, which was nice.
Lots of mode 7.
Yeah, and the map screen, definitely.
Yeah. I thought.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to agree with you guys. I thought it was nice. I thought everything the environments were really realistic and as wild and crazy as the different environments were and far-fetched. I thought everything really looked nice and fit well with the story.
Yeah, one thing I really liked about this game was that they didn't reuse a lot of enemy sprites. It seemed like each dungeon kind of had its own. There may have been a couple here and there that were just like palette swaps, but for the most part, each dungeon had its own unique enemy sprites, which is pretty nice. A lot of games tend to start recycling that sort of thing.
And not just the sprites, but each enemy in each dungeon had its own behaviors.
Right.
And it's something I forgot I wanted to bring up during gameplay, that a lot of the enemies had like an exploit, and the best example I can come up with is again, because I like the Great Wall of China so much, the guys that shoot the arrows at you, they can only shoot left to right, so you have to like kind of maneuver between them. And I almost feel the developers saying like, oh, like you figured it out, isn't that cool? You know what I mean? Like I don't know, like I really liked figuring out like what each enemy did and how to outsmart them, quote unquote. You know what I mean?
You could use your flute spin on those arrows too to block them.
Right.
Yeah, that came in handy.
Yeah, they might get bitten by one of those snakes in there, and you have to run from it.
Mine's captured on video, so you can see.
Animal cruelty. I didn't fight any of the snakes. I couldn't do it, so. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, anyway, back to the presentation here. The music was also pretty gosh darn good. Like nothing crazy to write home about, but definitely somebody commented on, it was Addicted again, who said like, even when I was lost in a dungeon, like the music didn't get on my nerves, which is like, that's a compliment in my book for a game like this, you know?
Yeah, so he said this game didn't suffer from the Darm Tower syndrome, or whatever he said. I don't have the quote in front of me. But.
No, that was it.
Yeah,
what is the Darm Tower?
Yeah, that
was from East.
Yeah, from East. There was a dungeon called the Darm Tower, which was a pretty long-winded dungeon, and the music in that dungeon wasn't bad. It was actually pretty good, but the problem is you hear it looped so much that you go sick of it, and that was a pretty common sentiment on the forum about that dungeon.
Yeah. For me, the music in this game doesn't really stand out, which, as I mentioned before, there's music that really stands out, and it's great music, and then there's music that is bad, and then there's music that doesn't stand out, and for me, a lot of times when music doesn't stand out, it means it's pretty good. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not, because it feels natural, as a part of the gameplay, and so you don't think about it.
That's a good point. Yeah. It's not like intrusive or anything.
Right. It's just kind of natural. It feels natural to the game, and I felt that's the way the music was in this game. It wasn't, anything fantastic, like you hear in some games, but it was adequate, and they did a good job with it.
Yeah, I think so. Like the town music was, sort of cheery and upbeat. Did every dungeon have unique music, or was that something that kind of got recycled?
No, I definitely think it did.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Some had its own music, and I think some were reusing music from an earlier dungeon. Which is kind of
right. I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
I think there was sort of like an all-purpose general dungeon theme.
Yeah, that's how it seemed. And same thing with the towns
and then
too.
Or maybe every town, every dungeon was a variation on like the main town theme or the main dungeon theme, which is probably the case.
Yeah,
and I'm
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I overall I really did enjoy the music in the game, but that's kind of my one gripe, is that they kind of reused some of those themes, from multiple locations. And while those themes were good, I thought it would have been nice if every location sort of had its own thing.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think, oh no, it was the boss fight music that was the same for every boss fight. But every dungeon did have a unique theme, even if they weren't too unique, they were at least different. Especially when it takes at least 5 to 10 tries to beat a boss. I think you do kind of get tired of that music.
That's like with the towns, like the first town in the game, South Cape, you have that kind of cheery, happy town music. And then the next town in the game, it kind of has the same thing. It's almost exactly the same, but I think there's like a little bit of a different drum beat behind it or something. So it's kind of just most of the towns are kind of like that, just slight variations on that central theme.
Mm-hmm. But like for me, it was sort of like the depth of the music, or like sort of how many instruments they were using in each track really made it interesting for me.
Yeah, I just looked it up if anybody's curious, because I just found myself kind of wondering, like, who composed the music for this game. Was it some like industry legend? Like, I know it wasn't Nobuo Uematsu, but like, is it some known person? But it's the composer here was Yasuhiro Kawasaki, and it looks like he didn't really compose music for any other games that got localized in North America besides Illusion of Gaia. If I've seen it, I'm looking at a couple different sites that have different resumes, for lack of a better term, and there's only like a Cookie Mama game or some other oddball thing, but nothing like where you could say, oh, he also did the music for this game, very familiar kind of thing. So it's kind of interesting that not some well-known industry guy composed the music for this game. I guess he
wasn't like an in-house composer for Quintet or Enix.
It doesn't look like it, from what I can tell.
It's interesting. Any other thoughts on graphics or music or presentation in general?
I don't think so.
I did want to touch a little bit on, like I mentioned at the beginning of this, that the North American release of Illusion of Gaia was localized by Nintendo, and Nintendo, at least at the time, and they probably still do, but they had some kind of strict guidelines on what they allow in their games. So there were some things that were changed around in the localization process. For example, and Shawn kind of touched on this earlier, but the native tribe near Angkor Wat, the game sort of kind of tells you that all those people starved to death, but they're actually cannibalized by the remaining people in the village. The game doesn't.
Yeah,
really
I think I got that though.
There's kind of a giveaway.
I think it's kind of hinted at.
Right.
There's a part where they're tied up next to the fire, and that's kind of a giveaway. And but yeah, they kind of don't really mention cannibalism. I think probably the original version makes that more overt, and also. There's a little bit of religious imagery removed from the game because Nintendo doesn't like that. So the school at the beginning of the game is actually a church in the original version. They changed it to a school, and
well, that makes sense.
Similarly, the teacher is a priest in the original version.
Yeah, I thought he looked more like a monk or something.
Does.
So yeah, I didn't even know that. That's
I think there
cool.
might be some religious imagery, like visually, in the school, like originally when it was a church. There might be like a cross or a statue or something, but it was
maybe
removed.
But then I think having it be a school kind of relates to sort of what my reading of the ending is.
Right.
So at least the school thing worked for me.
Sure.
And there's one other thing that was changed, and it's in the ending. Apparently in the ending there, it shows Will and Kara they're on the comet, and they're looking down at Earth from the comet, and they kind of make a statement that like this must be what it feels like to be God or something like that. Apparently that line just got removed, but
no, I think that was changed to like this is what it must feel like to be spirits or something.
Maybe that's what it was, but I don't quite remember. But yeah, they certainly didn't mention God because I guess Nintendo doesn't really allow that sort of thing.
No,
but
there's nothing like overtly religious in there.
But since we're touching on the ending, I guess we can kind of say what happens in the ending. Because I know you guys got some theories, but so at the end of the game, throughout the course of the game, you find out that this power or this comet that we heard about is there's a power from it that's halting humanity's progress. So I guess the game is actually kind of set in modern times, but for some reason humanity's kind of stuck in like the age of exploration or something, because they're just not evolving. But after Will destroys Dark Gaia, it returns the world to its normal state. Will's ghost parents inform him that he and Kara and all his friends will have no memory of this adventure, and they'll just kind of go back to their usual lives, except in like modern times. And the end, like the last little scene, shows Will and his friends at the modern day school, just ending a day at school.
And they show a big modern cityscape as well.
Yep. So, yeah, you guys had some theories here, so let's hear them.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird ending, and I think everything leading up to that point has been, about like some sort of spiritual enlightenment or evolution or something. So many characters say that in mythology, a comet is supposed to be the like a spirit, and the spirit is supposed to bring on evolution of the humanity that's living on the earth.
Well, it certainly did with the dinosaurs.
Yes, it did. But anyway, I think my initial sort of final thought on like what did I just play? Like what is this? The ending is so weird. I think it tries to be really serious at the end, and then after the credits roll, it's just Will and his buddies in school. So I thought, like, did Will just like daydream all of this?
With Kara too.
With Kara.
And it was said before that they wouldn't see each other or know each other, And he was like, I will find you.
Yeah. It's like, even if it takes, thousands of years, I will find you. It's a very,
Wasn't that in Last of the Mohicans? I will find you.
That's a good point. I forgot about that. So, that's probably, what it was. Like, why else would they wake up, in school?
Yeah.
And what, why would there be, visions of the future, and why would they show, a modern day city? And then sort of, I guess my second, guess as to what all this could be is a little more far-fetched, is that everything's been about consciousness and evolution. So I'm guessing maybe, and they say Will and Kara are more, what do they say? More evolved humans or something?
Sure.
So I'm guessing that, these two, they like, they did exist in the timeline of the game, and they just like astral projected or something. They projected their consciousness into the future. Super bizarre. I know it's like way out of left field, but if they're talking about evolution, and if where else can you evolve if you've achieved the highest technology, is just the evolution of of the psyche.
Yeah.
And that last scene kind of reminded me of the ending scene to 2001 Space Odyssey, with the space baby looking down at Earth.
That's a good point. And then they did have sort of I got this sort of Adam and Eve vibe.
Oh, that's a good one too.
From them, like they're going to be sent to Earth to, to continue and, move on from this, with no memory of it. But
right,
I did sort of get that sort of Adam and Eve religious vibe. If they are more evolved humans, why not them, right? Right, and they, she's able to enter the Tower of Babel with him because she has the other ring. Remember that she found, so she is the representation of light, and he is the representation of dark. And that's when they combine. It's not so much
like good and evil; it's more like just a balance.
Yeah, right. Not yin and yang, if you will, as opposed to like what we think of as light and dark with good and evil. Right. So, so those are some interesting thoughts. I had this idea that would have made the game really cool as a twist ending, and I sort of thought this was going to happen. Do you remember, like, at the end when you're going through the Tower of Babel, she just sort of disappears for a few moments?
Right.
And then you have to fight a few other bosses, and she's like...
She comes back.
She's got this, like, lame excuse as far as where she was. I mean, I felt that was, like, really odd.
What was her excuse when she came back? Because this one thing that I really have to fault this game at was you could press any button in advanced dialogue.
Yeah, that was a problem.
So if you accidentally press like a directional button, you'd skip some dialogue.
Yeah,
that's weird. When I saw someone on the forum, I thought it was just me because the Retron 5 controller is a piece of crap and the buttons are micro switches. So I was like, dang, I skipped another friggin' dialogue box that I won't get back. So sometimes I reverted back to some saves to see if I had missed something important.
Yeah.
So it's funny to hear that it was actually the game's issue.
Yeah. But I guess my whole getting back to like that, I mean, I don't remember like why she said she was, because it felt unimportant, like why she wasn't, where she had gone to in the meantime. But I felt like that was like really suspicious. So I was like, wouldn't it be cool like at the end if she was like evil
behind everything?
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't that be like awesome? And then you had to, and she like transformed into this crazy beast or something. You had to fight her. I'm like, that would be an awesome ending. Just someone you had been trusting and had been tagging along, and you would never expect that to happen, at the end of that game. I thought that would have been awesome.
No, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Sorry. I know that's kind of off topic and kind of weird, but that's kind of what was spinning through my head at the time. Is like, oh my gosh, she's going to end up being evil. She's following me around. It reminded me of Link to the Past. There's that one dungeon where you find that girl and she follows you around and you bring her into the light and it turns into that demon.
Yeah.
That's what it made me think of.
Yeah. I want to say that Floyd's first theory about the daydream, I think it was last night. Posted.
I finished the game last night, and like I texted you guys, and like, was this just a daydream?
And I always just kind of took it at face value. I never really thought too deeply about it, but as soon as I saw that, was this just a daydream? I was like, maybe.
Wow.
It kind of feels that way.
It hit me that way too. Yeah. When I saw it, it's like,
because the game begins in a school, and it ends in a school, but a modern day school, right?
Sure.
So, and so you see Will in a hallway of what looks to be like a high-rise building, and there's an announcement that says, the school day is done, and please be careful when leaving the building because we've had a lot of car accidents lately. So, like, obviously, you're in the future,
right?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's sort of like technology has been a bit of a theme throughout the game because you're Uncle Neil. Is he an uncle or is he a cousin?
I think he's your cousin.
I don't remember.
Neil's your cousin. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's an inventor, all right? Like he invents planes and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I'm in the future and I'm still wearing these same damn clothes.
But with a backpack. I think he had a backpack.
Can I get some Jinkos? Another sort of final thought that I wanted to bring up as well, and I just kind of popped into my head when we were talking tonight about the game, and Stephen was talking about how he had played this game when he was younger, and I started thinking about, well, what was it about this game that maybe it sort of escaped from me? Why did I not hear about this game until I started collecting games, and it kind of popped on my radar as a decent game. I think something that was really off-putting about this game was the artwork, the cover art to the game and to the box. It's very minimalistic. It doesn't tell you a lot about the game. If you think of other RPGs at the time, like Chrono Trigger, if you think of Secret of Evermore, you think of Secret of Mana, those are all games that have sort of action art covers. And when you think about this game, it's simply text and the planet Earth. That's about it, right?
Yeah, but
you're right. It doesn't tell you much. I guess because they want you to read the back of the box too.
I don't know.
Well, I guess,
I think I don't know.
Well,
I think they're also
could have been worse.
Yeah, I mean,
it could have been the
even
cover of Phalanx.
I would say even like the Final Fantasy games are kind of similar in that they're very minimalistic. And I'm thinking about like
when you're talking about Final Fantasy, you're talking about a series that's
value,
already known
right,
from the
yeah,
Nintendo,
yeah,
right? So it's a good series, but
yeah,
I'm not knocking it. And
my guess as to the artwork is it reminds me a lot of the Link to the Past artwork.
Right. And I'm not saying this again, that's another series. You got Link to the Past. I mean, that's Zelda. I mean, you know what Zelda is, and you're going to buy that game because it's Zelda. My thing is I'm not knocking the artwork, on
no,
it.
I know
I'm saying
not.
like in my time when I was growing up, I would have encountered this game at, let's say, a video rental store. Right, and this is what I would have seen. I wouldn't have seen the back of a box or anything like
fair.
that.
Yeah.
And so, as far as playing this game or choosing this game, as far as what I was looking at that was on the shelf, I would have had no indication of what type of game this was, and there because of the artwork, and wouldn't have picked it up as opposed to like I said, Chrono Trigger. Secret of Evermore, Secret of Mana, games like that, Breath of Fire. I mean, those all have like kind of fantastic covers, action covers with characters in them.
Mm-hmm. They all have really good covers, but then they also have very similar names like Secret of Mana, Illusion of Gaia.
Yeah.
But I think they were, at least Nintendo was probably really targeting the Zelda fans.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's. I'm glad you brought that up because I think I wanted to mention this somewhere. But if you compare the cover of this game and the way the name of the game is presented,
the font.
Like its European and Japanese versions look very different. And when it was localized in North America, Nintendo had it changed to resemble like the Legend of Zelda logo. So I guess they were banking on that, sort of increasing interest for the game. And I think it's ironic that you say that, it's that if you had seen this as a kid or when you were younger, you wouldn't have been interested because that's kind of the opposite of what Nintendo was trying to do.
Yeah, font doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work for you.
It's a simple way to put it.
But I think it also plays a little bit like a Link to the Past.
Oh, sure. There's a lot of similarities in that. Absolutely. The other thing I kind of was thinking of is the name of it, and it kind of like goes back to, I never really thought about the name of the game, like Illusion of Gaia or Illusion of Time. But illusion can mean several things. But the way this is spelled, it means, something that's not real,
right.
Something that's an illusion, which kind of goes back to Floyd's theory about this game. And what's happening. So,
see, I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
So, Illusion of Gaia. So, it's an illusion of Gaia, which means Earth.
Right.
So, an illusion of Earth, or whoever this creature is. Or illusion of time. Mix up the time. Maybe if you're in school, maybe you're learning.
They're related, right?
Yeah. Maybe if you're in school, you're learning history. Maybe that's a history class that you're taking. So, it's sort of a mishmash of history as we know it,
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I like
so
that.
An illusion of that.
I think sort of my sort of final thought is always in my mind, because I've owned this game for a while and I've never played it, but always in my mind I've sort of related this game and I've always thought of it to be similar to Secret of Mana. And it's not. It's if there's anything that's even close to it, it'd be Zelda. And I always thought it would be this grand epic RPG, and it's kind of just a little story. And I'm not knocking it anyway. I'm not saying it's bad for these reasons, but I think that's also what makes it unique. And I think because it's unique in that way, that's a big plus going for it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I know that one of the things, and I wanted to get Shawn's kind of take on this. I know Shawn was talking about this was the game you used the manual, right? Didn't you have the manual for this?
Yeah, the manual that came with the game is kind of actually a strategy guide and a walkthrough to the game. And
wow.
The reason Steven recorded some footage actually is because I asked him to, because I intend to do a YouTube video about this manual. A lot of YouTubers who have reviewed the game mention the manual, but they don't really go, they just kind of show it and say, oh, the manual was a strategy guide. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And I really used it to play the game, and I wanted to talk about like some of the pitfalls of it, because it starts out quite useful, and it does tell you where every single gem in the game is as you go along.
Wow.
But one of the things is, as it goes along, you could tell that they were either, again, running out of money or time to write this thing, and like entire sections are missing. It's like if you were really like playing this not as a community or without the internet, you would be kind of lost as to what to do. Like the whole drinking game thing in Watermeria is totally not in there. You know what I mean? And I actually wonder if part of that was, did they not want to put that in a, Nintendo strategy guide? Like,
see, and that's not even like leaving things out to be vague, right? Because I mean, a lot of guides nowadays give you everything, and then there's like no like discovery left in a game if you're following a guide to a T. So like sometimes it's kind of nice when a guide leaves things out so you can just find them on your own. But this sounds like they just left things out because either, like you said, ran out of time or what,
Yeah, and some of the parts were kind of vague in that good way, where instead of saying, okay, do this, 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 and this, which is how I played Link to the Past, if you all remember me mentioning that on the podcast, but for this guide, there was parts that were like vague in a good way. Like, okay, this dungeon's going to be tough and the enemies are harder, but you need to get this item to complete the dungeon kind of thing. And you're going to have to use the sliding mechanism, a lot in this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool. And again, I hope to, I do have my YouTube channel and my forum signature on RF Generation. So if anybody wants to just keep an eye on that. I haven't uploaded anything in a very long time, but I would like to get back into it. So hoping to make a video. Now I'm putting myself on the hook to actually do this.
Being held to it now.
I was trying not to do that to you by saying I recorded this for Shawn.
No, I understand. Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm willing to admit I haven't, been willing to put in the time into it yet. But I actually bought a tripod for I'm going to use my phone as a camera, but I bought a tripod that has a little attachment that'll hold your phone with a remote, and no, I'm serious about it. So
that's cool. Looking forward to seeing that.
Good for you.
I'll talk about my final thoughts. I mentioned earlier that this is a game I played as a kid, and it's one I remember very fondly, and it's I consider it one of my favorites. I mean, to me, it's not as good as say Chrono Trigger or the Final Fantasy games and some of the others, but it's still up there for me as far as Super Nintendo games go. And I was really glad to share this one with the community and with you guys, and everybody seemed to enjoy it. So that was really cool.
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Yeah, this was. I like this game a lot, and I'm looking at my beaten in whatever year threads on RF Generation because I was curious. I feel like I haven't played a retro, and by retro I mean we used to do retro and modern, so just put it that way. Like I feel like I can't remember the last time I played a retro game to completion, and it actually was Link to the Past. In February of last year was the last time I played anything like 16-bit or earlier. So I think that I really for me, just my takeaway and my final thoughts of this game were, besides the amazing they went there moments with the dark themes and everything, was just for me to be playing a retro game from that era again. It felt like putting on an old comfortable pair of shoes, kind of. It was a really cool experience. So definitely this game too. I mentioned it in the preview last episode that I've had this game in my collection before I was interested in collecting for the Super Nintendo, and before I was really collecting. Somebody just gave it to me and I had it. I didn't know what it was. And the game for a while was just $10. Mm-hmm. Like you could get it so cheap. It's gone up in price a little bit, but it's still really cheap. It's like you can get this game for $20, and if you're into physical collecting, or even if you're not, it's actually the only way to play it because it's not on any virtual consoles unless you're going to emulate it. You might as well grab the cart because it's still relatively cheap for what it is. Goes for about $20 at the time we're recording this. So definitely worth grabbing, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was. I wanna echo what Shawn said, and that is, it was really satisfying to beat a retro game, because I think it was a long time for me since I've beaten anything in that 8 or 16-bit generation. So that was really satisfying, and I'm kind of glad that this game wasn't what I thought it was going to be, because that helped me, or that allowed me, I should say, to discover its charm. And it's it's got a little bit of quirky moments, and it's got some serious moments, and some moments where they try to go for the feels, and it was just fun all around. I gotta say, great pick.
Cool. Yep. So, good job, Steven.
So just out of curiosity, Floyd, what were you expecting with this game? Like a turn-based RPG, or?
No, I was expecting probably more along the lines of somewhere in between Secret of Evermore and Secret of Mana. Sort of like, enemies, on screen. You can sort of do that like action. That's what I was expecting, an action RPG. Which it is, but
it's a little lighter on the RPG elements than those games.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
I think I mentioned it reminded me of Beyond Oasis a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Genesis, but I didn't care for Beyond Oasis. There's just some parts in that were just
even I didn't finish that game.
Super annoying.
So, take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
It's cool. I'm glad you guys really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely, and appreciate you putting it out there. It's always hard, like when there's something from like your past that you really love to put out there. Like I did with Medieval, and well, congratulations on getting more than one person to play it with you.
I was a little worried because when the thread first went up and the announcement went up that people weren't signing up for a little bit. It took a few days, but then we started getting some people interested.
Yeah.
But pretty good turnout. I'm glad people enjoyed this one.
Yeah. Speaking of signing up, Floyd, do you want to let them know what they need to be signing up for next month?
Yeah, next month in the next couple days, next 2 days, we're going to be playing Uncharted, the very first Uncharted game. Uncharted 4: Thief's End has just come out not too long ago, and we thought, I thought, let's go back to the beginning of the series. Rich is now a PS3 owner, so
Yay.
Maybe he wants to see where the series began. And first one in the series isn't particularly my favorite, but I still do like it. And basically, it's like sort of Indiana Jones. It's very, very pulpy, very actiony. Not super hard, but really well written, well developed game. It's by Naughty Dog, who everybody by now should know them. They put out really high quality games
like Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah. No, even in like their PS1 era, like they were doing good stuff. So should be a little fun adventure game, sort of tongue-in-cheek humor. If you like Indiana Jones, definitely sign up for this one.
Yep. And by the time you're listening to this podcast, we'll already be playing it, but it's not too late. Come join us on our forums and check out this game. And also just want to reiterate, if you haven't listened to it yet, please listen to our E3 podcast. We'd love you to listen to that and get some feedback and hear your thoughts and what you thought about the E3 presentation. Thanks a lot.
Feedback would be important on that one, because as we continue to try to do these little side projects or side episodes, we'd love to hear, do you like them? Do you hate them? Should we keep doing them or not waste our time? So hit us up on the forums or on Twitter or Facebook or wherever.
That's right. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. And looking forward to some Uncharted. Happy gaming.
Yeah, see you guys next month.
And that'll wrap it up for another episode of the Playcast. Thank you again for listening, and an extra thanks to everyone who participated in this playthrough and joined us on the forum at RF Generation. In July, Floyd will be hosting the cinematic action classic Uncharted for the PlayStation 3 and remastered on the PlayStation 4. Log on to rfgeneration.com to join the discussion. You might get mentioned on the show. Thank you as always for listening, and we'll see you next time on the RF Generation Playcast.